very difficult. He's doing that. Everybody changed to his medium because he's very passionate. He's all about change. He's always thinking it's miniature guys, like the one that's movement, miniature, but this guy, we can write all the shows. Am I right? I'm not sure you picture. I'm thrilled to be here with Amin Rahman today to share insights about this later project. My name is Manar Abo Touk. I'm a curator. I've been practicing in Canada and abroad for the last 10 years. Amin and I actually got in touch a few years back, I want to say in 2020, when I was working at a gallery in Alberta. At the time, the gallery, we would have open submissions. So Amin submitted this project, and at the time my team and I would sit together and look at different projects of things that we wanted to do for the gallery for our programming. And this project really stood out to me, and it's a very special project. So I'm happy to introduce Amin Rahman, who has a multidisciplinary practice which merges political critique, historical research, and visual poetry. Through mixed media works, neon installations, and text-based compositions, his art reflects on migration, colonial histories, and the struggles for self-representation across borders. As I said, this exhibition was first exhibited in Alberta. It was a much bigger project. It was around 70 plus pieces, plus video and neon lights. It was a very intense time, the pandemic, a gallery in Northwest Alberta, and it opened, I think I want to say a week after the US pulled their forces from Afghanistan. was a very important moment and intense time. And I'm really happy to be invited by Amin again to showcase a few of the pieces, and some of the themes are in the show here today in Toronto with you all. So thank you again for sharing your time with us today as we have a casual conversation about some of the themes in the show and in this practice. So I just wanted to start by asking Amy if you could start by sharing how the project began. I know it's very heavily research-based, and it has to do with your interest in your region and tracing groups and mapping. So if you can tell us a little bit more about how the project first started for you.
Very briefly, I started working on colonial projects since after 9/11, and my first project was Iraq War. Then comes Afghanistan War, and that sucked me into this bigger project, which is I traveled to those areas as a cartographer and went to 12 borders of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, and Syria. But when we were discussing the curatorial stance, Manar suggested that it's better we just focus on the Pakistan-Afghanistan border region, because it itself, there could be a couple of more projects from this. So we did not cover at that time Iran and Syria. So then at that time you were seeing almost 20-30 pieces. Then I expanded, and in this project I've done almost 70-80 pieces, including neons and videos and so on. So during this time, so this how I traveled to those regions, developed the text and the stories of people who were facing poverty and poor infrastructure in that region. And the first project was obviously shown at the Grand Prairie Art Gallery, and then it traveled to Pakistan to exhibitions. And this is the fourth showing, which concludes the project itself.
That's the project.
Yeah, for now.
For now.
Because it's ongoing, one can add work years and years.
Yes.
And that takes me to the next project, which is String of Pearls, Chinese development in the region of South Asia, geopolitical situation. And that probably we may discuss later on when we talk about the empire and how the politics is being played in that region.
So one of the first things that Amin and I discussed when he was telling me about all these layered historical, really interesting historical facts about the region is both of our interests in not just focusing on the trauma of it all, but also about the history. I mean, I'm obviously not a specialist in the region. I know a little bit of it. I know a lot about contemporary processes. But Amin had shared with me a lot about the roots, the ancient roots, and how the silk was transferred. And we talked about the different scholars and artists that went through all of that, and how he was thinking about tracing those ancestors and how they moved down, thinking about how that has changed the land, environment, the borders, changed this movement. So I wanted to ask you to share a little bit about that rich historical context, and then thinking about how that formed into this fragmented layer into these visual works, which is text and almost this. I remember I told you one of the pieces that I love is showcasing this old archival imagery that feels like it's fading away, yet it's still sitting there in front of us. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the history of that root that we're talking about.
South Asian region has a history of 4,000 years, and when natural immigration started from Central Asia through Afghanistan and India. And there were two types of immigration, one natural, other but invaders. So we see that the invaders started coming to that region in the 8th century. First was Ghazni from Afghanistan. And then the Iranians were coming. They like Akbar, who was a pioneer, who was the first king of Mughal Empire, 40 times. And then he succeeded and became the king of Indian Empire. Similarly, we have Nadir Shah Durrani and Shah Abdali. So over the course of 500 years, so invaders were coming and plunging the kind of the region. You have multiple questions, but what's your?
I already forgot what was going on. But
yeah, so sorry. So then we see in the 12th century, 18th century, the Russians were trying to come to that region, where the British stopped them and made a pact, which is During Line, and that is a conflict has bothered that region, especially Pakistan-Afghanistan relationships for the over 100 years, last 70 years. So after British were the one who came for obviously colonization. Before that, all those natural immigration was they were the settlers. Even Mughals, they came as the settlers. They adopted the Indian culture. So then we see recently after the World War II, American empire slowly became dominant, and that takes over the whole thing. In the last 40-45 years, that region has constantly seen attack. the war situation. First, Soviet Afghan War, 89, 79, I guess. And then we see recently war on terror. And again, now we see a worse situation when the empire is trying to invade, to control the region through Belgram Air Base. So that is to be seen where this scenario goes. So that is the thing. There is a layers of political history and how the life of the local people has become miserable. Poverty, sheer poverty. We have no infrastructure after 40, 50 years war. And they live in a tribal society, which itself is there at times.
Yeah. And with all of that historical knowledge, to think about how to communicate and translate all these layered histories. One of the things that was really interesting for us is when we were talking 4 years ago was when I was sitting with my team thinking about the travels that Amin had done and so he sent me research books and he sent me we had a section in that exhibition about the scholars we had interviewed, and so they were talking about different contexts and different historical, political, archival, artistic research. But when I was thinking about how to translate this beautiful historical rich history plus the layered contemporary stuff that all goes into each other, so that the transformations that happens to the lands and these people, I was trying to visualize it in a way that shows the map. So I have to credit my curatorial assistants at the time who designed. I made them do 4 different mapping designs. So we had, before the borders were created, we had after the borders were created, we had the artist's journey to trace those borders and the layers of it all, just to see that. And so when you're walking through and reading all this layered text and kind of this visual imagery, we're trying to walk you through the historical context of different moments in time. I think behind me is supposed to be going into the poetry, because languages, this is also, we can move to the language conversation. So a lot of the text in these images are layered different languages. So there's
there's 5 or 6. We have local, we have regional, and then we have the imposed colonial language, the English language. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how, so when, even title, Leading Borders, when Amin and I were discussing that, it was the concept of how these borders were imposed, but also were bleeding through, because the communities continued to live through these spaces and continued to move. Some of them were forced to, there's a line now crossed and you can't continue to be with each other's loved ones. So all these things change. They change the land, the way the environment works, the history of the space, the way the locals communicate with each other. So why don't you tell us about some of the languages that are placed in these artworks?
Yeah, I started my travel from Iran to Pakistan, 4 borders of Iran, and then entering into Pakistan. So the region I went to, I used their languages as open text. So there are 2 types of images you will see. One, just the different languages in different format, and then image and text. So these are the stories of a common person, or maybe at times talking to activists, writers, lawyers. So it was just open-ended kind of research. So where I pulled the text, and then I was also documenting at that time. So wherever I was going, so you will see a lot of images, taken from life since I was traveling. Only in Iran, I traveled 12 to 15,000 miles in buses. So it was very generic, person to person, contact.
Tell us a little bit more about your layering process.
What I do in this project, that was a bigger challenge to bring together all these regions. So I use a strategy. In the last 25-30 years, I have used encaustic, and encaustic has different different contemporary background. But in this, I decided to use transfer method. So what I was doing, I used my images and text digitally, and then transferred on paper. So they give me a kind of the look, feel of the region, which is deserted and has no interest. But again, as aesthetically, through my experience, I have a kind of developed a new kind of aesthetic level in my work. If you tell someone this is a transfer, they won't take it serious. But how you use your material. Similarly, in previous projects, every time I come up with a different material depending on the requirement of the project.
So based on thinking of materiality and the mediums of it all, we know that there are a lot of the voices of the communities that you have interviewed and talked to throughout your travels through these regions. How do you can tell us a little bit about how do you feel ethically that they're being represented through these works? Is it the fragmentation? Is it the anonymous aspect of it? Is it the selection of the way these things are being presented? In the ways it's translated, some of it is English, some of it is in the other local languages. How do the communities?
I think I was open and I told people that I'm documenting, writing, got their information. This is the right way of doing a research, so you should be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
So my each picture tells, if you see the catalog, so catalogs give you all the references about my images and references.
Wonderful. Let's talk a little bit more about decolonizing language and the neon lights and what those mean and how they explore this concept of trying to reflect on, think on, understand what happened to the region and now how in contemporary times, how can we revive a lost language, a fragmented memory, things that are not passed down, and how through these neon lights, maybe we can talk about the uncertainty, maybe tell us a little bit more about
the Mughals brought Persian language from Iran to India, and they developed another language which is called Urdu. So Urdu is the language of 7, 8 different languages, and that was kind of adopted in the education system. It was taught 200 years. When the British came, they obviously introduced English. So that, I mean, obviously this was a conflict with the society. And when Pakistan came into existence till now, they've been teaching English as a first language. So there was a lot of retaliation about the education system that it should be revised. So still we see it, even introducing Urdu does not cover. They still need to go into the regional languages, which is how you accommodate your minorities. So these are the questions which region is facing.
Right. Maybe you can also tell us a little bit more about your technique of switching or the way some of this text is in English, but you have to come up close to it to realize that it's English. This technique of, it's not Arabic, is it?
It's not Arabic, it's Urdu I'm using. Mm-hmm. So if you see in this is Urdu. And
but I mean the specific writing that switches from
that started from my series after 9/11 when Bush was saying the Arabic as a language of terror. Mm-hmm. So I found a font which has an Arabic slant.
Right.
And first you get kind of surprise, but eventually it opens the similarity. Obviously, it is English. So that unwind the language of concept of language of terror.
Right. I know that you. So I never got a chance to come to Alberta when we opened the show there. But how, now that you've had showcased the work in different spaces and places, how has the audience reacted to this font manipulation, text manipulation? Did you see that they chose not to read it? Or did they get close enough to realize that it's English and you can't actually read it? Or did you feel like it created some kind of conversation about this understanding of not to fear language or not to fear text?
It's a combination of all three things, but mostly people obviously when you are in a gallery setting or you have come to see you get exposed. Mm-hmm. Showing at the Harbour Film Center 15 years back, general public, they were very receptive and they were coming to explore the kind of elements of visual language I used in my work.
I know that when I first saw one of the because I just remember this, I totally forgot. Before we did this show, at that gallery we also had an annual fundraiser, and Amin had submitted a work to that fundraiser. That was before the proposal even. Yeah. I remember this, and during one of our committee meetings for that fundraiser to accept artworks or not, that one of the text images came through, and someone had asked me, what does this mean? I was like, I don't know. We're all looking really close up to understand what this text is. I'm like, this is English. And that's kind of where it first started. I just recall this moment. Funny instance. So you'll see that a lot of the text as we walk through the fonts, I know the climate one's in the back, and then maybe I'll speak a little bit on the themes of what we did here. So in this first section, we have a little historical background context, and then we walk through when we talk a little bit about language, and there's the coin collection, which you just told us a really interesting fact about the coin imagery here, which is that you inherited a coin collection from your father, who was also an artist.
Maternal
grandfather.
Yeah.
Yes, the coin collection. Okay, so see, the layers of history here, it's just we can't, I feel like may one day, we'll focus on one thing at a time, but it's always really fun to have all these different themes to tell the story come through. So we have the coin collection, and then there was a political section that talks about Trump.
Migration, immigration, and local.
Right, the contemporary aspect of like what Trump had said about leaving the wars that they caused, and then some of the community members said, well, you know, some of the statements they suggested about that. And so it's like an interrogation of the contemporary. So that was why it was so sensitive during the openings of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And then we have all the refugee context from like people in the community, and then the migration of people wanting to leave but not wanting to leave. So wanting to leave because of the troubles of the region, but also really struggling with the idea of leaving their homeland behind and culture and language. And then we end, this was a new section which I really hope that we can expand on in the future, which is more of the thinking through land and environment and climate. See, eventually everything that we cause in one tiny space in the world will have an aftermath as we know global warming. It hasn't snowed yet here, so thinking about the climate and how we here started with those beautiful ancient rights have withstood all these dramatic events in the region, and now we're having to deal with climate problems and scarcity of water, changes in the region, the mountains, the forests, all these different things that are affecting what's happening. So maybe we can end there and talk a little bit about the climate and what do you see changing and how that project can maybe expand forward.
In 2022, I was invited by the Karachi Biennale to work on the water wars, and I created 18 pieces based on the augmented reality. So they were talking about different issues, how the world and especially the South Asian region is facing. So that in 15 years, water will be in scarce, and there will be droughts, and ultimately there will be more rains and more droughts, and people will be forced to flee. So this is a very, bad situation the region is going to face. We don't know yet, and they still say that changes in weather will affect the region.
And the global world. I mean,
Yeah.
we impose borders, but everything's connected at the end of the day.
True.
So water is really important as it continues to affect every region in the world. Maybe then we can talk a little bit about your photos for that series. And what is it are you going to go back to travel in the region to see what continues to happen? Is it going to affect some of the work that you do here in Toronto? I mean, thinking about the city being a very multi-layered, and the migration history is very, very evident, so this speaks on different layers. Do you think?
I think it's a continuing growing series, so
Yes.
I need to work, probably that will be my another direction. With the colonial issues, I'll be working more on environmental issues and climate change.
Do you think the imagery will change?
Definitely, the minute you talk different issues, and that will take you different direction. My other series is, as I said, on Chinese colonialism, the rise of China in the region, in the geopolitical situation. So that is, I guess, kind of where that goes, the conflict between the empire and the China. And what the region takes in new form, that is to be seen.
As it continues to evolve.
Yeah.
Now that you've had this show here at this beautiful space at Full Enrichment, in a gallery that you're a member of, a community that you're a member of, how do you see this exhibition to the audience here in the city? How do you feel, what do you feel is going to open up conversations?
I think this, I have developed my major body of work in the city. I've lived here over 35 years. So that gave me a sensibility of research and putting things together. Obviously, I came with the skills from that part of the world. So that continuously I'll be looking into this, which is my obviously research-based work. And I'll then see.
What do you hope this exhibition will do for the community in terms of conversations that may open up?
I think it's already there. This is a little difficult topic, but it's constant communication. This is what art is all about, contemporary art.
Yeah. What would you like to talk more about? Now that we have a beautiful audience in front of us, that maybe if you're all interested in asking questions, you can chime in as well. Is there something new that you've not discussed or you haven't been able to share before about maybe this collection or a specific image or even the installation lights?
Everything is expanding. I would love to expand my the paperwork, and I love neon. Videos I've done in this body of work, and it's always fascinating to expand in terms of skills and content, and then probably my last body of work would be what's happening right now in North America. So that will be concluding the whole for 50 years or 500 years my research, what I've done in this area of post-colonialism, aggressive globalization, what do you call it?
Aggressive globalization is a great term, words to use. Do you think you will change or conclude this aesthetic or this technique that you've built with these specific photographs, these mixed media practice, or do you think you'll move away and start a new project?
I'm already moving away, and that is going into digital. So, but even if I use this as a digital based piece, so that is something in terms of larger works. Though I have done a lot of shows where I used vinyl installations, that also gives me, I want to go with the larger format. So that is to be seen. Though this is, I'm very much inspired from the miniature painting, and this format comes from miniature painting.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that miniature painting, and where does it come from?
Miniature painting actually in the 17th century came with the Mughals to India, Pakistan-Canadian, and they flourished. And I think the peak of the Mughal miniature was Jahangir and Shah Jahan in the 18th century. And when the British came, this art of miniature painting died. And in the last 30-40 years, suddenly we saw at the National College of Arts, Lahore, they started reworking on the issues which were more contemporary. Miniature was reflecting, historical miniature was reflecting that period of 17th, 18th century. But there was a big gap of 100 years when the British were ruling. And now it has suddenly changed a new height. So that, and ultimately where it goes, nobody knows, but one can see it goes into minimalism.
Yeah. Do we have any questions from our members? Any interest or intrigue about the technique that Amin uses, or the stories represented in these pieces? Yes.
I'd love to hear more about your experience in Iran, because I know you mentioned it's not an area of focus in your work, but I'd love to hear if you have any stories yourself.
Actually, we have the space is very small, kind of, compared to what we had at the Art Gallery of Grand Prairie. So we took that section off.
So there was in borders. So when you look at the map and you look at Amin's journey going down those were the communities that he ended up interviewing through that route. And in that section there was, I think there's one piece over there about immigrant stories from Iran, talking about them not wanting to leave but having to leave. So there is conversations about different spaces.
And Manar added 5 pieces, but we had we were
focus on
the climate change topic, so that ended up only showing 1 piece.
But was your question about his experience with
Yeah, it's very interesting. Definitely, there are two types of old people and younger generation. Younger generation wants to leave Iran yesterday, and the older generation they still praise Shah of Iran, and they have not accepted the current regime even after 40 years. I think nothing would ever change. So this is a situation wherever you go, there is, people talk against the current regime, things like that. And, but I think situation, if we talk art, they are practicing contemporary art, but that is more based on calligraphy. And this is the same in Pakistan, it is happening. They have calligraphy and more contemporary art and landscape. The regional art is flourishing in Iran and Pakistan.
Interesting. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Ian. A really interesting talk. I'm really struck by the sense of time in the work. You know, we're so involved with all current events and, you know, the latest outrage that appears in the newspaper headlines. And, but you're going back with coins, you know, hundreds, thousands of years perhaps, and bringing them all together. And there is a sense that, well, there were tough times 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, you know, and so, as well as 50, 75 years ago. What struck you the most about, you know, working with this very extended time scale?
I think it was contemporary situation which we haven't talked about what's happening in Pakistan, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan border region, what people are going through, and the establishment is kind of pressing them more and more, and that is to be seen how the democratic forces survive. And that is the international establishment, what they are doing. So if they are little lenient, it could change in that region. So that was the takeaway of that region. It is a haunting region. Yeah. It's very hard to travel because the security issues are so many. Yeah. And it's not easy to go and travel and come back with some information. It's happening everywhere. Yeah. Even if you see Afghanistan, Iran, Sistan and Balochistan region, that is very depressed. Pakistan and Balochistan has a lot of issues, and KPK, so all that region is affected. Yeah. And we don't know, we are going back again, it happens and all that is to be seen.
Yeah, there's kind of a profound wisdom that this too shall pass. So that you know, kind of never gets old. But I'm struck by, you know, the rivers that you've got listed in the one on the left, where the Saraswati, you know, that's an ancient mythological river.
Yeah, that brings us back.
Eons. So, you know, that just brings out this, you know, vast time scale that you're dealing with.
Yeah, that is the idea, to bring everything very close. I feel product of that area, that part of history.
Yeah.
So that was the thing where I was absorbing, or that, you know, situation was sucking me.
You used a really good word, you said haunting. And I think we feel that haunting presence in those works. And the usage of, I'm sure, being in a space and looking at rivers or seas or anything, any body of water carries so much history and weight and movement and disappearance and reappearance. And I think when we were talking about those earlier histories that Amin had shared with me, that's what struck out to me the most, because you can go back today and use contemporary spaces and feel that energy and feel those histories.
Industry is the main kind of life in that region.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Any other interests, thoughts? Yes.
Amin, thank you for the show. Fabulous. I wanted to make a comment that doesn't deal with the historical small people local content, but just with the visceral materiality of the show. I think it's genius, my friend, to have the fluorescent lights, because I think without the two things combined, the framed under glass work was very traditional, conventional approach. It sort of distances the viewer from the work, but then with literally the electric edge of the neon, and one here as well, changes the engagement. You know, from where I'm standing here, looking at the works on the wall frameworks, they all have reflections, and they're reflecting the audience, but they're also picking up shapes and lights from this. So I think, yeah, you need both, but for as the show goes on, and you know that because you wouldn't have done it. And then the other thing, because I'm also interested in language as a signifier for in the visual arts realm. Apparently, I find this hard to believe, and I'm not trying to offend anyone who's younger than me, because everybody in this room is younger than me. People of a young generation cannot read cursive writing. Have you thought about that? So even if it's English, what? They may not know what it is. So,
Yes.
Do you think that the way that you talk about the show has changed over time? Like your language when you describe it, or when you share in a talk like this, do you think your vocabulary has evolved with it? And
Sure.
how?
Definitely, you with different audience, it does differently, and there are so many ideas. Maybe I'm not sharing a lot, or it is not the time. So every time is different. I had these 4 shows, exhibitions, and response was different. My response, audience response, and how the show is being laid out. So everything changes.
You mentioned it briefly, but could you speak to a bit more about your experiences concerning security? I mean, a lot of the documentation you did, you're going to border regions where things aren't as secure. So what were some of the processes and experience you faced with, say, getting people, getting guides, translators, and did you face any issues with security forces or governmental organizations?
Yes, I use different strategies in different regions. Like in Iran, I did 2 residencies, one in Tehran and one in Isfahan. So that helps you to approach to get into the community. In Iran, when I sent the information, and I thought the place is independent. But the girl told me that your all information is safe with the government. So government knew where I'm going in Iranian government. What was happening? And then when I was going to Zahedan is so has so many issues of security. They check my stuff 5-6 times. And it's so hard. I was told not to talk to anyone because there's a Sunni majority. The only province in Iran is Balochistan, Sistan. So they were at different times. There were different challenges, and most of the time I was traveling with 2 or 3 people, or 2 or 3 artists, or 2 or 3 friends. So this is how I was able to connect this. But the facts are real, what I was interviewing, I was talking. this residency helped me a lot. And then some activists, I developed my contacts with them before going from here. That helped me, that also helped a lot. So I was able to get the resources in Pakistan, to the libraries and that type of people. So these are, in Pakistan it was different strategy, Iran different, and obviously Turkey was not that difficult, though, I mean, with the Syrian borders, huge issue there. And Balochistan was very difficult. You cannot even take a photo. People walking with the guns, if they see your camera, they immediately you right away. They don't ask questions. Why are you taking photo? So they were different challenges.
So these also reflect moments of tension in terms of your own safety taking these photos and having these conversations with communities. That's another layer. Here we go. Any other thoughts?
I can't help but ask this question.
Yes.
Your sort of latter period is here in North America, and we're in these tensions. Sort of the fall of the American Empire is sort of underway, and how do you see the continuity and discontinuity between the history that you've articulated and the current moment here?
I think it's very interesting when you come back after traveling, or even I was showing 3 shows recently in Pakistan. So that's altogether different. This place is getting quieter, I've noticed. Because
It's getting quieter here.
here, there is a lot of, buzz in that part of the world. In Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Though that the turmoil is there, negativity is there, and they're not sure which way to go. I mean, the empire or the Chinese, they are sitting there, China. They are there, the Gwadar project is not taking off, which is the CPAC. So there is so much conflict, and then the people, common person is facing so much brutality within the border. So outer borders have come to their houses. It's very interesting. People are in a bad shape because of the establishment. And that establishment is supported by the international establishment.
So then when you say that it's getting quieter here, you mean artistically, or you mean just that when you come back from those type of travels?
Well, definitely there is more population. My first impression is that it is quiet.
Yes, that is okay. Yes. Okay, so it's almost 5. We can have any last remaining thoughts, or we can wrap up and enjoy the rest of the evening, look at the artworks, read what you can, or have someone help you read some of the text that are quite small. Amin and I are here for the rest of the evening, so if you want to ask us questions as well, we're here to talk about the show and our experiences working together.